And just to start, I have a very personal interest in this area of alumni engagement and tech transfer. As of this day today, I've been at the university for 20 years. Yeah. And Ian, just to let you know with my age, I can retire today. I've also, in that 20 years that I've been here, I've been involved with the Alumni Association in one way or another. First in the College of Engineering and then on the national level. And I am proud to say that I will become the president of the National Alumni Association July the 1st. So I'm very excited about this. And so as I've been involved in the Alumni Association and working in the tech transfer office, I always had in the back of my mind, like I was meeting all these successful people, people that have gone out and started companies and done well. And then I had the tech transfer side where we had startup companies that needed help. And so I've always thought, how can we get these two groups together? And so when Ian came on board with us in October of 2016, we started to have these conversations. And so here we are today. So I'm very excited that this conference is taking place, and hopefully we can do some things and move forward. I want to say our panel today is true blue. All UK folks, and I'm going to go through some slides first, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. So this is my dream. So I would like to have Rep Arena filled with people cheering on tech transfer and innovation like we do a basketball game. So that's my dream, to fill Rep Arena. We want to have Patton-Palooza at Rep Arena. So some of the reasons, we did some benchmarking last year to look at other schools and what are they doing with their alumni. And so we found some reasons why alumni might want to engage in the technology commercialization process. So philanthropy and alumni associations are looking for new ways to engage with alumni. So this is yet another way, as Fletcher mentioned. Alumni and their networks are untapped resources for a variety of our commercialization activities. And then these partnerships are mutually beneficial for everyone, so it's a good thing. Where can alumni engage? Of course, you can invest in a fund, but also we can use alumni to do market assessments for our technologies when they come in, when they're disclosed. They can be mentors to some of our startup companies. They can help us make connections within their organizations and kind of shepherd along technology within the company, and also reach out to their professional networks. So maybe they can't help us, but they know somebody else who can. And they can also help us to identify funding sources. One thing, from all of the reading I've done, is to take extra care and be cautious. Fletcher mentioned this, is that we want to be extra careful with alumni and donor lists and want to be careful not to step on anyone's toes there. So if we work together, then we keep one another informed of what's going on. And another thing is that you don't want to approach somebody on purely emotional appeals because of their passion for the university. So the passion has to be there along with an interest in the technology. So some of the universities I looked at, Brigham Young University, their tech transfer office works with alumni. They have an alumni entrepreneurs group. The alumni participate with their business plan competitions as judges. They have an executive council that's made up of high-level donors, so they might present their startup companies or do a tech transfer showcase to that group. And they also have something that they call star performers, and these are graduates who are now CEOs of large companies, so they also introduce their startups and technologies to that group. Penn State has an 1855 capital fund, and the significance of 1855 is when they were established, and this is a fund that invests in students, faculty, and alumni of Penn State. It's a $10 million fund, and they provide early seed capital to these companies. And this, in their case, it is not directly affiliated with Penn State. University of South Florida has something called the FAST 56, and there again, they were established in 1956, so they're a newer university, but they look at the fastest 56 alumni-led companies in the country in every year, and they celebrate those who are leading those companies. So that's kind of how they do it. NC State has a group. They have a networking group of alumni, and so they're trying to provide help for their startups there, and they also want their alumni to network with one another. So they want their entrepreneurial alumni to get to know one another. So they have various events where they bring them together. So at UK, we want to blend the Office of Technology Commercialization, the Alumni Association of Philanthropy to create Wildcat Love. This is a bourbon. This is bourbon that you can buy. The Fayette County Alumni Association and Taunya Parsons over there is a part of that. They came up with this fundraising event. Barrel House Distillery is where they sell this bottle of bourbon. So we want to create some Wildcat Love here. I want to let the panel introduce themselves first, and just start with okay.
Good morning. My name is Susan Mustian.
Oh no! Tell about
Okay.
yourself.
Well,
Tell about yourself and your connection with the university.
Thank you. And why I'm here this morning. I've known Taunya for a number of years because when I was president of the Alumni Association, which she'll step into at the end of this month, she served as my treasurer, our treasurer. And I've heard a little bit about this department. I remember one of our meetings you had Ian there to actually speak at a luncheon. So my involvement with engagement of alumni, donors, volunteers, not only has been with the university since I was a student in this college. I was a marketing major back in the 80s, but also with JDRF. JDRF is the leading researcher in type 1 diabetes. I've been diagnosed 33 years with that disease. I had no interest in getting involved with that organization, but it was a connection here at UK who became the director in Cincinnati, who pulled me into that organization 7 years later. I have been president of that board. I have served as Gaylord chair. It's a multi-million-dollar gala some years. And I benefit from technological advancements. We're an insulin pump that came out of research, funded, I'm sure, at the university level in California, and a continuous glucose monitor that speaks to each other, speaks to my watch, allows me to live my life a little bit better quality of health, but also to live it a little less invasive in my life. So I have worked with a number of organizations on engagement, and as of July 1st of this summer, we have changed a significant event. Part of our organization for many years was to charge membership dues. And we have seen that the young alums, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, how do you engage those alumni, not just those that have grown their wealth and can contribute, but those that have the potential someday. And we have reduced the barrier to engagement by involving every alum will no longer have a membership dues, but will tie their engagement to their donation to a campus entity. So as an alumni association, even though I'm not staff, I was volunteer, I helped lead that effort, and I'm very proud of where it went.
Good morning. My name is Jill Smith, and I'm a 2005 graduate from Gatton. I'm also a 2011 graduate from the College of Ag, Food and Environment. I got a master's degree in community leadership development. I've worked at UK, I guess, technically since my first day of school here. I came in the fall of 2001 and started volunteering in the sports information office of UK Athletics and spent 4 years there as a student. I gained an interest in business from working in that department, seeing how things ran. And then after I graduated, my old boss, Don Wentz in the back of the room, he gave me my first job at UK. He and Laura Glover in the Office of Admissions. So I started there in June of 2005. So I just came on, I think, 14 years? So anyway, kind of crazy. And I spent about a year there and then moved to the Alumni Association. Association in '06, and I've in my, I think, 5th position at the Alumni Association. So now I serve as the Associate Executive Director, kind of manage the day-to-day operations of the office, oversee the budget, several units in our organization, and then work very closely with our Executive Director, Tim Walsh, who's in the back today, on a number of things that engage volunteers, engage alumni, various programs. We, 3 years ago, I guess, became part of the Office of Philanthropy unit at UK as well, so we work very closely with our Office of Philanthropy, try to be strategic about what we do, try to, engage alumni where they want to be engaged. So we realize that times have really changed. We graduate over 5,000 students a year now. We cannot do a one-size-fits-all program that's going to connect them all back. So we're really focusing on ways to get folks back to UK, connected to UK through however they want to be connected. And I think this partnership that Taunya spoke about is a great way to do that. I'm also a mother of 2 children, and I use technology a lot. Susan mentioned her watch, and my son plays baseball, and we have an app that tells us when to go to practice and what time our games are and if there's a rain out. And it's just really fascinating how it impacts our lives on a daily basis. So glad to be here today and look forward to meeting a lot of you throughout the day.
Can everybody hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm Gaylord Vanguilder. I graduated from the College of Agriculture in 2004 because I couldn't get into the College of Business. I won't tell you when I graduated high school because I really enjoyed college. So it was a good time. Proud UK graduate though, although it took a little bit of time. Myself, I've been married 15 years. We've got 4 kids and we're all over the place with baseball. I coach 2 teams. And it's just nuts. But professionally, I started off as a pharmaceutical sales representative. And our company got acquired and then acquired by another company. And on a 6-minute conference call the Friday after Christmas, we all lost our jobs. And it had been a real big Christmas. And so I learned at that point, I said, look, if this is how the industry works, I need to be on the side that's scheduling the conference call versus the side that's receiving when it is. And so from that point, that was really my tipping point. And so from that point, I took a more entrepreneurial path, and without getting into all the details, we've been, me and a lot of very smart people, smarter than I am, have been able to successfully build and exit 4 different pharma companies. And so I had met Taunya at a pharmaceutical business development event in Philly, meeting called Bio, and we had some good discussion. And I've always been passionate about number 1 UK and number 2 Central Kentucky, right? So Lexington and the surrounding areas, and we've got a lot of great, smart, wicked smart people here at the university that are developing things that we could bring to market. And why not do that here in Lexington and build a local community around that? So that's kind of my passion, and I didn't know it when Ian said it, but I guess I'm categorized as a boomerang. I like to think I'm kind of a rebel, and I don't fit into a category. So that's a little bit about me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you all. So my first question for the panel is, in general, what kind of interactions do you think alumni want with their university?
Well, I can speak to probably 2 age groups. I'm in my mid-50s, but I have 3 children in the mid to late 20s, not far out of college, embarking on careers. And they're motivated differently in some ways, and in some ways quite similar to me. I have found, and also with trying to engage people in the JDR community, the Type 1 community, believe it or not everyone wants to be involved if they're dealing with a health issue. But you have to be
think the one-size-fits-all approach, I think all alumni associations are trying to shift away from that. Obviously, that takes resources and staff to be able to do that. As it pertains a lot to this audience, I think a couple efforts our office has made in recent years is we have really changed our career services program and really put a lot more resources into that program. So one program that one of our career counselors started was called Encore Careers, and it was aimed at alumni over the age of 50 who are looking to phase into retirement but not ready to go there yet. And a lot of them go on to be consultants before they actually retire, may not ever retire at all, but they want to do something different than they've been doing. And she developed that program targeted at that age group of alumni, and it was very successful. We sold it out, I believe, the first time it was offered, and have since offered it a few other times. So that's a very different way at looking at alumni engagement. Career services in general, we now have 2 full-time career counselors, and then Dawn, who's in the room in the back, works closely with that program too. But honestly, it really runs the gamut as to where people are. We try to do everything from help people find a job to, engage people as mentors or, just networking in general. So we really have a lot of programming around career services now. And then also my colleague Eric Orr is in the back, and he's over our alumni engagement in the colleges and units on campus. And that's a position we added just a year ago, thanks to some support from philanthropy and a couple other colleagues. Melissa Tomlin's here from engineering, but we 2 weeks ago were at Cummins Engineering in Columbus, Indiana for a lunch with alumni who work at Cummins. And we, they led that event, but invited us to come, and it was neat to be able to talk to alumni who actually are brought together because of where they work. Different ages, it tended to be more younger alumni that day, but we've done that at Procter & Gamble, we've done that at Eastman Kodak in Tennessee, we've done that at Stites and Harbison on the law side. So alumni want to be engaged the traditional way, I think. I mean, tailgates are not going away, and homecoming is not going away. But these are different ways of looking at alumni engagement. Another way that we really engage our young alumni is we have host a Dance Blue alumni reunion. And those of you that aren't from UK, it's our largest student-run philanthropic event on campus. And really, I think, is teaching our students the importance of philanthropy early on. They have to raise a certain dollar amount to be able to dance. And they've raised millions of dollars for our pediatric oncology unit on campus. That started in '06. So I like going to that event because I am always the oldest person there, one of the oldest people there. But it's a lot of fun. We have one young lady, though, that comes in from New York City every year for that reunion. She was chair of Dance Blue. It's not tied to a game. It's not tied to homecoming. It's in February, and she comes to be part of that event every single year, as do 75 to 100 people. So these are all alumni that are 35 and under. So it's a really neat way to engage them. There's something that they were involved in as students, and literally they're all over. But we have a really great turnout for that. So
Yeah, I would say number one, basketball tickets, especially here at UK. Number two, if that's off the table, football tickets when they're good. But in all seriousness, I think number three would be opportunities to engage, right? And so my perspective is coming from the pharmaceutical business perspective. When you're looking to fill your pipeline and you're looking at research and development assets, universities are a breeding ground for all of that research and development that you don't currently possess in your own company. And so, but you kind of take a deep breath when you say, dealing with the university, whether it's UK or whatever, is a pain in the rear, right? The process is slow. They think the assets that they have are, billion-dollar assets, especially when you get the inventors in the room. No offense at all, because they probably are. But from an industry perspective, you just look at the process and you're like, man, it's painful, right? So, opportunities to engage that can accelerate that and create value, because the assets that sit in the university, from an industry perspective, number one, they're high risk, right? Because they're usually very early in development. Proof of concept, a lot of times, hasn't been fully flushed out. So risk profile is high, but yet you've got a university telling me that the value is high too. And those two don't really coexist. So it's, you know, I think creating platforms where we can engage and have more business-friendly environments. And I know Dean and I have had this discussion, and he's been a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
And I think his background has a lot to do with that. But working, you know, with industries and connecting with alumni within industries that can help drive assets within the university, either into spin-outs or into existing organizations, and creating platforms, you know, where you can engage. You know, that bio meeting is a great example. You know, you get bio and JP Morgan, which are the two, you know, largest business development meetings in pharmaceuticals. You know, and so on the flip side, you just got to figure out how to connect there. You know.
And Ian at Raja, one of our colleagues in the Office of Technology Transfer, you guys had how many meetings at bio?
Lots, however many, Raja.
Good.
A lot.
A lot, okay. So yeah, we are using that platform to reach out. So if I were to come to you guys and ask you, you know, there is an opportunity for you to invest in one of our startup companies. What would you think? How would you
Well, I would
think
take,
about that?
the first thing I would think of is my relationship with the university. And if it's been good, or has been good, or continues to be good, I have an interest in that. And if I don't have the resources to invest, I typically know someone who does. So, for example, my husband has built his career over 30 years. And I left my career 30 years ago to move with him in international postings. We live in Asia 2 times. And his career has developed, and I've raised the family. But I'm involved in the community to the point where one of my best friends has the third largest baking company in the world. So, you know, there are people with resources that if I don't have the resources, I actually know an alum. And that's one thing about your alumni association members. You might not have the person that you are targeting or that could be interested or could support or help you, but chances are that they know the people that can. So you're developing relationships. You're not, it's just not a one-on-one. And I, you know, if the university came to me, I'd have as much interest in the university as I would in a corporation that's going to give me a return on my investment, because I want something for that investment. I would be clearly interested.
What about you, Jill?
I think a lot about Dr. Todd. He was our president for 10 years, but he talks about his companies that he started, and one of our past presidents of the Alumni Association was his first investor in his company, and obviously he made those very successful. So sold one to IBM, and I can't remember the other one, but you know, his work took him all over the country, but he relied on alumni every time he got into a new endeavor to try to invest to make it work. And obviously it paid off for those investors, but that relationship is where that started. Maybe in college, he was a professor too. So just the UK connection can foster a lot of that. And I've got to listen to Dr. Todd speak a lot through my job, but also as a student, and just recall him so many times referencing alumni and what that meant to him as he, you know, went throughout his career. Then when he became president of the university, he knew so many people already through business, and all those relationships that had been built that started when he and his wife were students, you know, really benefited him as president. So I think alumni, as long as they have a positive relationship, they'll listen. Obviously, whatever the product or the investment opportunity is would have to meet, you know, an interest that they have. But I think that most of our alumni really genuinely want UK to succeed, want it to get better, want it to be better than it was when they attended school here. And these kinds of things help move the needle. So I think any of them will listen. It's just like Susan said, whether they have the resources or need to talk to somebody else. So.
Yeah, I think as an alumni, you know, when you see a business opportunity come across your desk and it's from the University of Kentucky, you know, a little passionate flag goes up and say, hey, I'm really going to take a hard look at this. I mean, you would look at it just like any other, you know, business opportunity or investment opportunity. You know, but to your point, you know, if it's not me, you know, the network out there, you know, there's introductions, there's, different things that you can do. So I think given the opportunity, number one, as an alumni, whether it's, UK or the Ohio State or, whoever it may be, that's where, the value comes in because you have an emotional connection, right? And so, you're a little more motivated, to, number one, take a hard look at it and try to make it work if possible. And then number two, to go that extra mile in making connections if it's not the right opportunity for you personally. So.
And how do we find people out across the country? How does our office reach out and find you?
We work collaboratively with the Office of Alumni Affairs, Office of Philanthropy. Having 3 children in their mid-20s, they are all now starting to get involved in the community. So I see this opportunity for this department. The growth is unlimited because I see my children wanting to be involved in something that they're giving back to, but it has to also be socially fun. So they will be, it's nothing for them to do happy hour as a meeting at a local brew house and get 50 to 100 people. If we organize something ourselves, we may not even get that number. So it's connecting with them. Also, this young generation, younger, under 40, they're not scared of risk. They change jobs every 3 seconds. They have to. The economy kind of factored into that in the last 10 years. So they also are working more from a flexible environment. They're working transients. They're working from home. They're not scared of that risk. But do they know about the opportunities? Do they know about? It's not enough for them to say, oh, here's what the University of Kentucky is doing, or here's what Ohio State is doing. They have to kind of hear it in a more organic way, and it has to be something within their community, whether that community is through work teams involved in philanthropy, or it's through their friends, but they have to be involved in it. It has to come organically, and it has to start sooner than later. I always say, maybe I'm not giving you $1 million a day, but who's to say I won't win the lottery next year and give you 10 million? You have to create those relationships. It takes staff, it takes resources, but what do you have out there at universities? Free labor. You have this resource of alums who most have had a good experience at university. My husband has a graduate degree from another school, so I understand the challenge from the previous chart of what do our doctorate degrees do and what are our master's degrees do. They leave the state, happen to us. So our allegiance more was at the undergraduate level, but you have to be able to start early and young. You have to be in those communications. You have to talk about something that's sexy, as you mentioned earlier, to that crowd.
You mentioned the email that you get from the university.
Yes,
telling the stories of innovators.
Right. So that's a new thing with UK, in that we have always had communication. That's another thing. At least with my children under 30, they don't want 100 emails. They no longer use social media to the way you think they do. They're over it. They're burnt out on it. They don't want to be caught up in it. So it's kind of hurting them a little bit. And we would send a lot of emails. Hey, alum, this is what's happening. Every 3rd day, they would get an email. And they would get it from their college they graduated. Maybe they were in a club in college. Maybe they were an athlete. Maybe they were in a sorority. Maybe they were, it's just constant. And we found that we needed to not have so many touches to the alum, but they needed to be strategic, as Joy mentioned. They needed to be well thought through. So now I'm getting once a week on Friday, 1 email, 5 top stories, which by the way, because I'm so engaged, I've already seen them that week. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, but guess what? Not everybody's doing that anymore. And they're telling me 5 different things, and there's an interesting story, and each story has a photo. So I'm gonna open it up because I want to see who's in that photo. I want to see what's really going on. So they've changed the communication strategy here, and I think it's working out.
As far as finding, we use a number of data resources to try to keep our database as current as possible. However, a lot of our alumni do really great things, and unless there's a press release or they think to call us and tell us what awesome things they're doing, we don't often capture it. We do our best, but that's an area that I think any alumni association would tell you they struggle with. LinkedIn Sales Navigator has been a big help in our database mining, I guess, so to speak, as far as identifying, you know, high-level folks, CEOs, innovators, that kind of thing. It's just still very much self-reported in a lot of cases. A lot of our lawyers and folks that are in upper-level management, there might be a press release go out. We usually get those, but we don't get the other. And on social media, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It just depends on the person, what they're involved in. We have an alum in Houston who started a chemical engineering company, and through the Houston Alumni Club, met a guy who's now on our board. He's kind of mentored him to come up to our board, and the person that he hired is actually in marketing. He's not an engineer, but he works for the engineer who started this company, and they're both heavily involved in UK, graduates of two different colleges. So that's a story of where they met. Obviously, there's a career opportunity for both of them, I guess you could look at it that way, through networking, through, you know, not around work, but it turned into work. So those things happen. We try to foster that, but it is not, like I keep saying, a one-size-fits-all.
Do you think there's a way that we can piggyback on existing programs to get the word out about what we're doing in technology commercialization?
Absolutely. I think the showcase that you all hosted was a good step in the right direction. I think the challenge is the national and international approach. We are doing more webinars, our career counselors do a lot of counseling via Skype and those kinds of resources. But I think you'll see more of that outreach, more of that international type focus with video and those kinds of things. But it is still a challenge for sure.
To speak to Welcome to Your City events, because that's an Alumni Association event that was, you want to speak to that, because they just kind of wrapped up. That might be.
Yeah, we tried to do something called Welcome to Your City, aimed at new graduates, but also it was open to others, but that had just moved to a new city. So these were done the last 2 weeks in 4 cities across the country, and it was really just a networking opportunity, trying to say, we're here for you. You recently graduated, and here are some alumni that can help you on your path. And so we'll continue to try to do those things, but there has to be some initiative, I think, on the part of the individual. I mean, we do our best, but LinkedIn, I think, has been a good resource. Probably, not that the other social media platforms aren't, but that one is a little bit different. So
in order to get our list of invitees to our tech showcase, we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and just did a search on University of Kentucky and founder and co-founder. And so we were able to come up with a list from that. So that might, if you guys are trying to reach out, it might be something that you try. Gaylord, how can we reach our alumni?
Yeah, so for me, there's a bar down in Midway, Kentucky. That's
That's where we can find you.
night. It's down in the basement. It's pretty good. But if you don't sing, I think those communications are great. Just for me personally, right? When I see a communication that's kind of broad sweeping about UK, I'll read through it. But if it's got content that's tailored to my interests, which are tied back to my LinkedIn background type of stuff, then I'm really engaged, right? So if it's talking about pharmaceutical assets and I saw the press release on the opioid grant that came in, right? That was laser focused.
Right.
So I think targeting some of that content in a very intentional way, whether it's engineering or healthcare or whatever it may be, will incite. Because really what we want to try to create is a big sign that says we're open for business, right? And the more business you do, the more business you will do, right? Because the industry will figure out, hey, we're putting out a good product, they're willing to work. And I think the same thing on the internships and kind of the mentoring programs is, creating that foundation and bridge for the younger students that are, trying to come out and make something of themselves. So.
Do you guys have any last thoughts on before I open it up for questions?
I would emphasize the career aspects. That's really where you speak to people these days. And you speak to certainly a younger generation, or if you're, as Jill mentioned, phasing into retirement and doing some consulting on the side. Economy drives this. What I've learned working with both UK and JDRF is there's a lot of money out there. People just have to know those relationships. It's getting into communicating a little more specifically, maybe based on the colleges of your alums. It's meeting them at the bar to do karaoke on Saturday. I mean, it's really, truly, you would be surprised that you think the technology generation, they are coming back around to having more face-to-face. So, and it's leveraging the alums you have now. I did not go to Welcome to Cincinnati because I didn't feel I was really the person they should be meeting and talking to. It was really not the age group I had been there. But I got a call from my alumni association, and they said, who do you know in the area that we could ask to speak? What young alum you might find interesting? So again, it's not me helping and directly working towards that. It's me trying to help bring others along and help connect the two together. And I think that's critical.
I would say, our work is relationship driven. The Alumni Association, while we do a lot of student outreach, for the most part, our work begins when folks graduate. I mean, it begins while they're students, but, the meat and potatoes of what we do are with alumni, obviously. So if they don't have a good student experience, it makes our job really tough. And a lot of times it's amazed me, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, that experience is tied to their advisor. Who was their advisor? Who were the faculty members in their college that made them feel welcome every day, that they felt like they could talk to, go to, have a good student experience, those student orgs. And the advisor piece is really a big thing. If people have a bad experience sometimes, they just never get over it. And they may go on to do great things. And I think, if we can help educate our universities as a whole, meaning students, faculty, staff, everybody, that we're all in this together, and that 30 years down the road, this student might really make a difference for this university, and keeping that in mind, that'll make our lives a lot better. As far as engagement, I think it's just like I keep saying, there's so many different ways we have to change with the times. When I first started, I never foresaw any kind of encore career program happening, but that's something that has been good for us, and something like that something along those lines we'll continue to do. I would just, encourage everyone to just stay on top of technology as we're talking today. We have an app. That's another way we're trying to reach alumni. And just never think that there's not new ways to engage alumni, because it happens all of the time as time goes on.
So I think, my dream would be to leverage UK technology, spin that company out, build it and staff it with UK-based people who are current students, students that have graduated, so alumni, and us have a tremendously successful exit. Some of what we heard earlier, because what happens when you hit one of those, the leverage that you can have moving forward around what you want to do and freedom to operate is exponential. And so, to your point, there's a lot of money out there, right? And even if you look at, Bill Gates or whoever it was, everybody in their life has never raised money before, right? It's daunting, right? You think about, I'm going to go up to, New York City, and I'm going to get clobbered. I'm going to go to Chicago, and I'm going to be in the room of the sharks, right? But everybody has that first. And it doesn't matter if you're raising capital, or if it's pursuing a dream of starting a business or partnering with the university. I would just say, get after it, right? And we've got a lot of opportunity to get after it in our respective universities. We just got to have the right people around the table and the right passion to do it. So,
Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, Ian.
I never run out of questions. So, the fact that you guys ran into each other at Bio, Gaylord, and Taunya a few years back, is not just sort of gratuitous. I think it actually means something. And so, as I think about research advancement, technology commercialization, UK is not just good at research. We're good at research in certain technology verticals, in certain tech fields, right? We're good at research in ag tech. We're good at research in medicine. And so those faculty and our interest in the companies that we can pitch our technologies to are in those fields. And so we go to Bio, where we take our life sciences technologies, and we might go to CES, where we might take higher tech technologies. So the idea that maybe to propose here for open discussion is, would it make sense to hold alumni events? So I'll bet there's 20,000 people who go to Bio, Gaylord, guys ran into each other, but I was just there, there were probably 25 or more, maybe 50 UK. Well, I fortuitously ran into 3 or 4 in Jacksonville. Would it make sense to do alumni events at tech vertical focused?
So we used to
like
do that.
Absolutely.
When we went to Bio, I remember, this would have been around 2005 or so, we went to, Bio was in Chicago, and we had an event, and back then, the president used to come to Bio, and the governor would participate, so it was kind of like it was a Kentucky thing, but then UK would have a separate event for the alums that lived in Chicago, and it always was a good turnout, so I think that is a great idea.
Think of your alumni associations as your global, very few departments, if any, apply to globally the entire university, meaning they can touch every college, because when you become an alum, you could have been a science major, biology major, business major. So absolutely, that's valuable, not just to you, but think about how valuable it is to that alum who's been asked to become engaged, who then starts to resonate with them. And it kind of develops that emotional, if it was a good experience in UK, as Jill mentioned, it brings that back. But absolutely, we do that at a number of events, and it's usually around athletic events, but not always.
Right.
Not everyone's going to be, I'm like Gaylord, give me the ticket. But that's not going to speak to every single person.
Can I throw that to the crowd? Does any other universities have sort of alumni focused events around a tech field or at an event like Bio or something like that?
We had one when I was in University of South Florida.
South Florida, you guys
In
did?
DC, we had an event there after a national conference. But the foundation members came and
Yeah.
we did go, but that was led by the CEO of the foundation.
And we work collaboratively on this campus, alumni department, philanthropy, other departments, to hold those. Like the College of Law may have a reception
Yeah, right.
when they're at,
Actually, I was going to mention that Tim went to the Bar Association, Kentucky Bar Association reception this past week with representatives from the College of Law, specifically to be there to meet our alumni that were there for that conference. So dentistry is good about doing that with their continuing ed programs. So they'll often have a reception wherever that is being held for the year. And some of the others, but those are two that come to mind.
It would be neat because just to do almost to work, the Technology Commercialization Office and an alumni and beyond those types of events. We find ourselves at large association events like Bio often. It would be neat to put more of those.
free food and drink will get you
That's
a
right.
large group anytime.
Especially the drink.
Especially the drink.
Well,
And, you know,
I think to add to that, right, so when we're at those conferences, right, it's kind of, we're all awkward in some way, shape, or form, right? And so we're looking for connection points, right? Common ground, right? So when we talk the discussion, we're talking about, hey, you have kids and all this stuff, right? But the whole reason we're doing that is because we're trying to find a connection with the other person, right? So if you're talking about, which I think is a brilliant idea, setting up an area that's comfortable, right? That I know I'm going to have a connection with this group of people. Yeah, I think, if marketed right and appropriately within the confines of the law of the meeting, I think that would be awesome. Say, hey, University of Kentucky Tech Office is hosting a bourbon and burgers get together or whatever it may be. I think you're going to pull, because one of the questions that I had is, how do you pull an industry, right? So if I wanted to see who across the landscape within pharmaceuticals is alumni of the University of Kentucky, there's not an easy way for me to be able to do that, right? Furthermore, to identify that conference, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense on a number of fronts.
And I recommend that maybe it begins as a reception, and maybe over the course of time, maybe within just a few years, it can actually develop into a reception, and then it can develop into something further. It's also a way for you to promote what you're doing, who you are, why you're there. But the alumni base of the university is very deep and very strong. And the staff that manages all that, very talented. I can say from my experience with my university, very talented. And so they do this all the time, and they do it for lots of departments. And it's just working. And, as an alum, you also want to see your various interests kind of hanging out together as well, being together. So it's a great idea.
Any other questions?
Do you guys have a way of connecting with aren't necessarily alumni, but went to UK and decided that finishing wasn't meant for them, but have been successful. You know, if you could tap into that group.
Sure. Most of the time we refer to those folks as friends of the university, but actually technically by definition, when you complete 12 hours, you're an alum. Most of the time when we run lists, like the numbers that were referred to up here, that's probably living degreed graduates. But I always kind of clarify with whoever asks me the question, what number do you really want? Because graduates is a little bit different than alum. We used to have a community college system here at UK, so we have a number of folks that have an associate's degree. I think everybody it was prior to 1998, that live out in the rural parts of Kentucky that we try to engage as volunteers and things, but they never actually came to Lexington. They were alums of those community colleges. But there are a number of friends of UK that are engaged. I know one gentleman here in Gatton that did not go to UK but relocated his company in Cynthiana and has been heavily involved in the business school because of that. Relocated it from California here to Cynthiana. So we really do try to do that. Philanthropy is probably more engaged with the friends than the Alumni Association, but we do engage them through clubs and other means as we know about those folks. So.
Yeah, I would recommend the clubs. If your alumni association is organized possibly in a geographical club and structure for, say, Cincinnati, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, a lot of times because you gravitate when you live out of state or you live far away from your university, you gravitate like family to alums. And a lot of times you'll get friends of the university involved in that. And they can be as passionate and as resourceful as your alumni. And so there'll be times where the staff will contact the clubs and they'll learn through their involvement that this person has been contributing, whether it's financially or with their time or their talent, they're contributing. And then there are ways to pull them in. So yes, those people exist and they're very passionate. And it's probably because either where they live or where they grew up, maybe they grew up in Kentucky, for example, or because they're affiliated and passionate about the basketball program. But, excuse me, that is a group that you can. It's not a large percentage, but it happens probably in almost every club we have, inside and out of state.
Gaylord, do you want to talk about what you did in the Raleigh club?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Your major.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell, I'm out there a little bit. But, so we lived down in Cary, North Carolina for 8 years, and that's right outside of Raleigh. And so there's two big chapters in North Carolina. You've got the Triangle Raleigh area, and then you've got the Charlotte area. And so we banded together and lobbied the state to get a UK logo license plate. Right in the backyard of Duke, UNC. And so the state, was very friendly with us and said, hey, you're going to need a minimum order of 300 to be able to do this. So I'm proud to say I've got like 285, 287, and then there's another one in there for my daughter. But it was awesome, to be able to drive down the road, in tobacco road country with a UK logo license plate. You get a lot of interesting looks, so.
I'm sure they did like that.
Yeah, that level of engagement was awesome. Because you felt like you were doing something as a team
Right.
for the university, like you're representing. So it was awesome.
Any other questions? Yes.
Do you guys find you have more success when you specifically ask alumni to contribute, or you let them decide that for themselves?
Well, at the Alumni Association, if you look at the continuum of giving, I don't know if you all have ever seen that chart, but a lot of times we may be the first connection back for someone. So our goal is to hopefully push them along that continuum, and we work really closely with our philanthropy colleagues on that. So, for example, there's a gentleman that has a building here named after him. Started as a volunteer with the Greater Louisville UK Alumni Club, eventually became president of the Alumni Association, eventually became on the Dean's Council in a college, eventually became on the Board of Trustees, and now has a building named after him. So there were different people along that path that helped foster that relationship. So in my case specifically, a lot of times we deal with that front level engagement, that first level engagement, and then hope to move folks along as time goes on. We have some philanthropy colleagues in the room that do more of the proposals than the asking. But once they start meeting with a donor or prospective donor, they tend to key in on their interests and what they might be interested in, and that's kind of how I guess it goes. And I don't know if y'all want to answer
I'll
that.
add a little bit to that. We did a survey of the alumni board members this past year, and that was one of the things that we asked, when do you feel most engaged? And they said is when they were asked to do something specific with those specific outcomes. So sometimes I think we just need to ask our alumni.
And that data piece is so important. I mean, if we don't know where someone works or know what they're volunteering with in their community, or, it's hard to put all that together. But it really is a team effort to try to make that ask and make it happen, and hopefully do something big for the university.
The membership model that we changed this past year that will become effective July 1st no longer asks for dues, because we found that dues paying membership in any organization has declined. Everyone's going to be an alum. You're going to get some level of communication and service. However, if for a minimum of $75 starting this year, you're contributing to a cause that's important to you, you're donating to the Dance Blue, you're donating to your fraternity that you once belonged to, you're donating to athletics, all of a sudden then your level of interaction, services, benefits increases. And so it's developing that relationship, not knowing when to make the ask, whether that ask is 75, 7.5 million. It's important, the timeline, of course, but it's important developing that relationship. But at the end of the day, if you don't ask, not a lot of people think, maybe I should give. Because it's not inherent in almost everyone to say, I need to give. Maybe they give at their church or their synagogue. They give to another philanthropy. So yes, there is that expectation, but you have to develop that process that allows you then to make the ask, whether it's $75 or a lot more.
The ask here will be to turn license plate engagement.
Yeah.
Licenses.
Yes.
Licenses.
Yes.
One day of giving in UK was a big deal. So how much did we raise that? So we had what they called One Day for UK. And there was this big push, big marketing push for everybody to give something on that day to wherever you wanted to across the university. And we raised over $1.1 million in one day.
First time we've ever done this.
Yeah.
And the beauty behind that is people then give to what's important to them. That gets back to we're meeting them where they are. We're not telling them you've got to pay us a dues. We're telling them support your university. We're going to support you. And how do we support you? This is how we do it. So we came and met them to where they're at.
So I just want to say thank you to all of you for being on this panel. Thank you for your service to UK and go Cats.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a